Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggle with ASU strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.
Thank you for Abuja, the capital city of Nigeria. I'm Iya Mofude. We are delighted and pleased to have you join us this wonderful Friday morning. It is Global Morning. Of course, a weekend has just begun. For many people, in some sense at least, today being the last working day of the week, then for the fact that most of us look forward to the weekend that is apparently upon us now. Again, like they say, great weekends begin on a Friday to assess the situation, whether on an individual basis or from a national standpoint. The week, as is always the case, has turned out to be very eventful, even though it basically ends tomorrow. But in all, we stay grateful. This week, for example, has seen us losing one of our finest soldiers, General Taoreed Lagbaja, who passed on just a few days ago. Of course, he had been, he hasn't been in public glare for a long time. Indisposed is the term. And then, of course, there can be vacuum in leadership. President had to get someone to step in so leadership can continue and the army can be properly led and all of that. So the gentleman also got elevated and decorated in the course of this week. But then just the case, and for many people, the fact that it happened at 56 is already one of the several concerns. But that's something we need to talk about a lot this morning on the program. We'll take a quick break. When we return, then we'll talk to you about these and many other issues. So for many people, one of the other concerns is the fact that the military, and in particular the Nigerian army, has been on the forefront of the war against insurgency, banditry, and several forms of criminality. And losing a fine soldier like General Lagbaja, blessed memory, is not just a loss in itself, but it's an irreparable loss, even though Nigeria is blessed with several of its kind. But then life must go on, like they say. That is again the challenge of what happens going forward. How is that gap going to be filled in such a way that vacuum is not noticed and there's no crack in army leadership? Well, I'm sure the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who also is the president of this country, will provide direction on that front. But Nigeria also has a couple of other challenges to deal with, which of course have to do with energy in this country. Whether you're talking about energy from the standpoint of electricity, or as it has to do with fuel, or gas and diesel and what have you. All right, we've seen what's happening with the aviation sector right now. We see how airfares are skyrocketing locally and internationally. Some persons are not even comfortable discussing airfares right now. I was talking to someone about travel plans and all of that, and the first thing he asked was, will they be traveling by air? That question was coming from a place of concern around the fares now and how they are shooting right through the roof and all of that. So energy concern right now is palpable. We see how that in the last, 9-10 days, we've had grid collapse. At least in the last 2 weeks, we've had grid collapses. At least 5. In the last 2 weeks, 5. As a matter of fact, we had 3 in 5 days. And then worse still, we had 2. We had 2 in 24 hours. So that gives you concern as to how much we should be disturbed and very bothered about energy issue in this country. Just yesterday, Bayo Onanga, who, by the way, is the special advisor to President Bola Tinubu on information and strategy, was busy trying to pacify Nigerians, starting from X, formerly known as Twitter, to say, look, all of these stories you're hearing about the compressed natural gas, that is CNG powered vehicles, they are not true. Because CNG will be an addition to the energy mix that we're trying to address in this country, especially when you look at the fact that many experts have said it's far cheaper to have CNG-powered vehicles on the road as against the current practice where most of the vehicles on our roads are powered by fuel or premium motor spirits, all right? But where is this whole narrative coming from? Malaysia is saying that by 2025, it would have phased out CNG-powered vehicles on its roads, all right? And that's a bit of an irony because conversely, Nigeria is putting in everything it's got, in a manner of speaking, into pursuing CNG as a viable alternative to premium motor spirits. Recall that a couple of days ago, the president has said that Nigerians now essentially have 2 options in front of them, right? You either can afford fuel, that is petrol, for your vehicle, all right, which sells for upwards of 1,000 naira baseline, right? Or you turn to the younger sibling, so to speak, which is CNG, that sells for just above 200 naira, all right, which is 5 times cheaper, that sort of thing. Of course, as expected, reactions were divergent to the president's statements, but some people I talked to say the point the president was trying to drive home is the fact that government is creating options for Nigerians to choose from, depending on a few factors: viability, affordability, convenience, and what have you. All right. Others are saying it was insensitive of the president to have made such a remark, because what he's trying to say, according to their own assessment, is that he's telling citizens that we've done the much that we can, so you've got to deal with the rest, that sort of thing. But beyond all of that back and forth, the reality we now have in front of us is the fact that Nigerians know that we have a real-time issue on our hands with energy. So this morning, one of our focuses the CNG initiative, which is very big on the side of the government. As a matter of fact, there's the CNGI, that is the Compressed Natural Gas Initiative, which is an agency of its own, has leadership structure and what have you. So for the president and for the government under Bola Tinubu, this is very pivotal, all right, in terms of national development and driving the country back to the path of prosperity and development. We need to talk about that, because whether you like it or not, there's going to be so much of progress we can make as a society and as a country if we do not address all of these issues. Is there some truth? Are there facts that Nigerians are not being told regarding the CNG? How is it that the CNG doesn't seem to be as popular in some other parts of the world as it is in Nigeria? Are we lagging? Are we playing catch up? Are we still living in dark times? Couldn't there be other options, better alternatives to premium motor spirits as opposed to the CNG? Those are some of the issues we'll be putting right in front of our analysts this morning in the course of our conversation. And then, of course, there's the issue of security, particularly in the north, which many people say now that is getting worsened by the day in the face of the fact that we know the armed forces, the military, they are putting in the work and they are making as much difference in this regard as possible. Just to also remind you that we have the Global AM news for you at top of the hour in the course of Global Morning today. Then, of course, we'll bring you big headlines from across our national newspapers just to assert your weekend on an information-driven path, and then expect that you read up details for yourself and stay ahead of the news. We're taking a break now, everyone. When we return, we'll bring you newspapers headlines. Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides, cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television. Time to take a look at papers. We begin with the Daily Trust this Friday morning. Stories or headlines just above immediately below the nameplate for you. First one here, top left corner. It says, National grid collapses twice in 2 days. Maybe people are becoming bored with this incessant collapse. And the enthusiasm to talk about it has waned over time. Zamfara abductions. Bandits begin negotiations with victims' families. Sad story. Very pathetic reminder of where we are with regards to insecurity. Media owners, editors urge Tinubu to save industry. And then the star story is in reference to the cell of terrorists that has now been discovered and even confirmed by the defense headquarters. How Lakarua members are terrorizing us, Sokoto residents, that's somewhere in the northwestern part of the country. 3 riders accompany the big story on the front page of the Daily Trust. A group imposes law, fines. Sect members are from Libya, Mali, Niger Republic. Will degrade them. DHQ are the ones to whom that is credited. I'm being pushed to betray Kwankwaso, says Kano governor. Apparently, Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf is the one to whom that is credited. Just for perspective, Governor Abba Yusuf of the NNPP, that is the New Nigeria People's Party, and the gentleman being referenced here, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, himself a former governor of the state, is the de facto, some people say controversial and in some sense embattled leader of the NNPP. For most people who follow Kano politics, the incumbent governor, Governor Abba Yusuf, is the political godson of Engineer Kwankwaso. However, it will appear things are not as smooth now between both of them as they had been prior to this time, and the news is very much awash with all of those evidences, what have you. But that's how it normally plays out with politicians. Now, the government is saying that he's being pushed. In other words, we can safely say that the governor is telling Nigerians, and in particular the people of Kano, that there's pressure on him to betray the man many persons have come to refer to as his political benefactor. But 2027 is up ahead of us. We continue to watch and see how this development unfolds. And then we take it down to the bottom of the front page. FG to provide free cesarean sections for vulnerable women. Step in the right direction if you understand how this dynamic around CS, as we call it, cesarean section, has become a challenge in this country for decades. We don't deal in adulterated fuel. NNPCL, obviously trying to debunk the rumor around the companies selling fuel in jerry cans and other forms of containers. Nigerians doubt CNG vehicles' safety after Malaysia's ban. If there's any facts, any truth that the federal government is not putting in Nigeria's front right now, this is the best time to do that, because whether we like it or not, the world has evolved. We are no longer in 1975. So if there's any potential danger that is associated with CNG, this is the best time to let Nigerians know what exactly that is, because we don't want to get to a point where a lot of damage would have been done and then we pay far more price trying to reverse or address such a damage as we would have done averting it in the first instance, so we don't become penny wise, pound foolish. All right, that's that for the Daily Trust newspaper, everyone. Let's flip over now to the Punch newspaper for you. All right, on the Punch, we begin with the headlines above the nameplate. Again, we'll start with the one at the top left corner with a picture of the chairman and chief executive of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote. A marketer sued Dangote, insists on petrol imports. You will find that story there. All right, banks free to trade with deposited FX, that's CBN there, just providing some clarification. All right, on the front page of the Punch. But that's all we can bring to you from The Punch. Let's turn to the Blueprints, the Blueprints newspaper real quick, all right? When you look at the front page of the Blueprints, we have a story here with a picture of the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo SA, and FG to concession airports across Nigeria. That's according to Keyamo. FG to concession airports across Nigeria. BP Vitol, other global traders jostle for Dangote fuel. So what exactly is happening if these companies, these very established and long-standing companies, are falling over themselves for Dangote fuel that we don't seem to be doing same back at home? Well, we need to find out, all right? But there's a bit of sport on the front page of the Blueprint newspaper. AFCON 2025, Nasarawa United celebrate Victor Collins Super Eagles call-up. Okay, then far right end of the front page, it says DHQ names 9 wanted terrorist leaders, troops neutralize 481, rescue 481 hostages. That is some success story there that has just been recorded by the defense leadership in the country. Then the big story tells us CNG initiative unlocked $200 million private sector investments. CNG initiative unlocked $200 million private sector investments. That's presidency there. And then we have 2 riders with that story. Ali's safety concerns says development in Malaysian LPG related non-CNG. India, China, Iran, Egypt have considerable success. Onanuga is the one to whom that is credited. Then if we take it further down a little, editors conference expects Tinubu's intervention for the media soon. That's Idris, Minister for Information, there talking. Of course, the media industry looks forward to that. And then at the foot of the Blueprint newspaper today, NDIC pays 86% of depositors' funds trapped in Heritage Bank. Kuje Gwagwalada dualization to transform Abuja City. NNPCL denies link with adulterated fuel in jerry cans. All right, those are your big headlines coming through this morning from the Blueprint newspaper. Okay, let's take a look at the next one for you, the Daily Independent, with quite a number of headlines on the front page of it. The big one says ongoing economic reforms have started yielding results. That's Daily Independent this morning. As according to the FG, ongoing economic reforms have started yielding results. FG, 2 riders for you, unlocks $1 billion across energy value chain, expects 2 major investments by mid-2025. And then left end of the front page of it, Tinubu resetting Nigeria with removal of subsidies. That's according to former CBN governor, now the governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo. He says that Tinubu resetting Nigeria with removal of subsidies. Soludo. Nigeria's film as grid records second collapse in 48 hours. Nigeria's film as grid records second collapse in 48 hours. I mean, I'm not so sure Nigerians are, beyond the fact that they don't have lights ready to dwell on these, putting in energy and time, right? Fix PDP to pull Nigeria out of critical state. Makinde charges party leaders. Edo Guba court set to deliver verdicts on governor-elect's eligibility. Why I want women to own gardens in their backyards by Oluremi Tinubu. Why I want women to own gardens in their backyards by Oluremi Tinubu. This is on page 6 of the Daily Independent for you today. All right, let's bring you just 2 more headlines from the same paper real quick. Governors plotting to towards LG autonomy. That's according to Norge. Governor's planning towards LG autonomy. That's Norge. That's Nigeria Union of Local Governments Employees. All right. How do the governors intend to do that? What's their strategy? What's their modus operandi? Well, you can read that up if you pick up a copy of today's edition of the Daily Independent. Army ministries oppose bill to set up mine rangers. Army ministries oppose bill to set up mine rangers. Why are they opposing it, even when someone in the person of the Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dr. Dele Alake, says this is what we ought to have even done long before today? So who has a superior argument between those who are for and the other entities who are against? Well, I'm sure you can find details on page 6 of today's Daily Independent. So let's raise the bar a notch higher, bring you some two headlines from the Daily Independent before we move on to other papers. We are not in dispute with Dangote Refinery Pinnacle Oil. Ondo Guba airing officials will be sanctioned. INEC chairman. Ondo Guba airing officials will be sanctioned. INEC chairman. So let's take a look at the Leadership Friday at this point for you. Leadership Friday, we start from the very top of it, top right, with a picture of President Bola Tinubu. Editors Conference opens debates on nation's economic recovery. Cardoso presents 1-year scorecard, reiterates $1 billion remittance targets. Cardoso presents 1-year scorecard, reiterates $1 billion remittance targets. And then further down a little, FCTA launches crackdown on beggars, scavengers. Dangote invests $280 million in CNG infrastructure. All right, you find all of that when you pick up a copy of the Leadership newspaper today, where you can find a lot of perspectives for yourself. But then we need to move further with other headlines. The big one, for example, says military raises the alarm over new terror group. Military raises the alarm over a new terror group with 2 riders. Says they are now in Kebbi, Sokoto. Declares 9 terrorists wanted. We killed 481, arrested 741, rescued 492 in October. Quite significant milestone there recorded. All right. I just sent the nameplates of the Leadership Friday. Hardship. PFN declares 40 days of prayer fasting. Those details are on page 6 of Leadership Friday for you. And then somewhere else on the front page of the Leadership Friday, it says national grid collapses second time in 48 hours. National grid collapses, second time in 48 hours. Some say, well, by their own assessment, it is in 24 hours. But whatever it is, it's a bad situation. For those who say it's twice in 24 hours, as it is for those who say it is twice in 48 hours, right? 22,239 policemen deployed for Ondo Guba election. That's upwards of 22,000 policemen for one election, an off-cycle election in one state amongst 36 states. Jigawa agri sector key to poverty eradication, Nexim Bank. All right, those are your headlines from the Leadership Friday today. Let's take a look at other papers, this time the New Telegraph. We start with the one, just 2, actually above the name plate. IGR, Lagos FCT Rivers top as states generates 2.43 trillion naira. IGR, Lagos FCT Rivers top as states generates 2.43 trillion naira. That's from the New Telegraph today. What more do we have? Reports Naira drops to fresh low as liquidity dwindles. Reports Naira drops to fresh lows as liquidity dwindles. And then here it says, with a picture of Seyi Makinde, governor of Oyo State, 2027, Nigerians looking to PDP for direction. Makinde, and the writer says, INEC accredits 111 groups observers for Ondo Guba. Customs collects 1.04 trillion naira for FG, impounds 60 containers of illegal drugs from India, UK, Canada. Details await you on page 5. Enugu withdraws from governor's suit challenging EFCC legality. The writer tells us Obi donates 60 million naira to Uni Niger Nursing School. Enugu withdraws from governor's suit challenging EFCC legality. How is it that every state is withdrawing one at a time? Who knows? Maybe at the point we're going to have no state at all behind these suits anymore. But again, that's a different conversation in itself, right? And then we have another one here. It says FG kicks against Mine Rangers Service Bill. Once existing agencies equipped for the job. FG kicks against Mine Rangers Service Bill. Once existing agencies equipped for the job. DHQ confirms emergence of new terror group. Lukarawas in Sokoto, Kebbi. Those details are on pages 2 and 4 of the New Telegraph today. Let's see what the writer tells us. Says group with origin in Niger Republic fallout of security gaps in border areas. Declares 9 wanted for terrorism in Northeast. Lagbaja's actions on battlefield will inspire us to kill terrorists. Okay, those are big stories for you this morning. Then what more do we have? Says blackout again as national grid collapses twice in 3 days, fifth within a month. Blackout again as national grid collapses twice in 3 days, fifth within a month. And the writer says TCN blames sudden rise in frequency from 50.33 hertz to 51.44 hertz. Minister orders immediate execution of committee report. Hopefully those efforts will address this issue, at least to a very large extent. NGE confirm. Obaibona urges FG to tackle mafia, stopping refineries from working. And then here it tells us, let's see what it says to us here. Two writers, protect your integrity. Diri urges media practitioners as president says economy improving. Nasima boss berates banks trillion naira profits, says earnings at variance with lending. That's quite a conversation we need to have, but then it appears to be, for the most part, the big elephant in the room. Let's look at the last headline at the base of the front page of the New Telegraph today. Study links poor sleep to motoric cognitive risk. Sounds like high sounding words, but it is what it is now. Study links poor sleep to motoric cognitive risk. I think your research should be based on motoric cognitive risk. That's where the crux of the work is, but it's health related, mental health in particular. All right, that's all from the New Telegraph. Next port of call will be the Nigerian Tribune, but we're taking a break at this point. When we return, big headlines from Nigerian Tribune today and a few other papers for you. Okay, let's turn to the Nigerian Tribune. Headlines above the nameplate real quick with a picture of the Minister of Health. Here he talks about issues around vaccine. Says Nigeria aids other countries to ban. It says FG unveils free cesarean session initiative to combat high maternal mortality. Sounds like an excellent initiative. FG unveils cesarean session initiative to combat high maternal mortality, which again and again, year in, year out, has been very high in this country over a long time. Nigeria aids other countries to ban corporal punishment. Join other 100 nations to end childhood violence. Very important, is the way to go. DHQ confirms emergence of new terrorist group in Sokoto, Kebbi. Declares 9 members wanted. National grid collapses second time in 3 days. TCN blames frequency spike for blackouts. Adelabu orders immediate implementation of committee's report. IBEDC disconnects UCH again. So at what point are we going to have resolution over this issue of University College Hospital in Ibadan? Well, not even disconnected. And you know what that means. The hospital will have a gap in energy availability, and then for those who are on life support, for powering, critical equipment, lighting up the place, is going to be quite a challenge, naturally. All right, says IBDC disconnects UCH again. Patients resort to torchlights to access wards at night. Quite sad. Off the top of your head, you can imagine how bad it is. Hospital shifts to generators, inverters for crucial areas, not the entire facility, crucial areas. Gunmen kill 3, destroy over 100 hectares on farm in Plateau. Gunmen kill 3, destroy over 100 hectares of farm in Plateau. Oyo NLC hails Makinde for approving 80,000 naira minimum wage. Oyo NLC hails Makinde for approving 80,000 minimum wage. Incidentally, those are your headlines from the Tribune today. Let's also take a look at the Daily Times newspaper. Above the nameplate of the Daily Times newspaper, Noge warns governors against sabotaging local government's autonomy. On the Daily Times newspaper. All right, then we take it a bit further down. Some terrorist leaders, commanders indicate to surrender, says DHQ. FG inaugurates MAMI project to address maternal mortality. Apparently that headline is replicated, in fact the story itself, across papers today. Speak out against reckless drivers. FRSC admonishes road users. Hardship. We appreciate your endurance, FG tells Nigerians. The writer says economic reforms yielding results. Tinubu confident signature initiatives will boost industrialization, prosperity. NCC to simplify mode of tracking data usage for customers. NCC to simplify mode of tracking data usage for customers. And then we flip over to the Guardian newspaper quickly. On the front page of the Guardian, we'll look at the star story first. The kicker is e-learning. Nigerians in diaspora create new demand income for teachers. E-learning. Nigerians in diaspora create new demand income for teachers. It's the big story for the Guardian this morning. Details are on pages 4 and 5. Lack of accountability stifling fiscal processes. FRC warns. Lack of accountability stifling fiscal processes. FRC warns. That's the Financial Regulatory Council. Customs intercept 16 containers of illicit drugs at Tinkan Port. Customs intercept 16 containers of illicit drugs at Tinkan Port. I'm open to probe after handing over, says Obaseki, as it should be. Every governor heading out of office should be able to say this with some level of confidence, because this gentleman, Governor Godwin Obaseki, leaves office in 4 days. That's on the 12th. All right. So he says, by midday, essentially, of 12th of November, I'm open to probe. All right. So I think that's fair enough to say. So if there are allegations against him, if there are petitions against him, the appropriate authorities, according to what he has said in the news, are at liberty to engage him on those issues. All right. Again, there's a reason it's called accountability for a man who has been in office for 8 years. LASSO's research on rape reveals alarming rates of child sexual abuse others. LASSO's research on rape reveals alarming rates of child sexual abuse others. FG28 Gencos at loggerheads over 2.5 trillion naira debt amid worsening grid collapse. FG28 Gencos at loggerheads over 2.5 trillion naira debts amid worsening grid collapse. All right. Then what more do we have? Military confirms new terrorist group in Northwest. That's the Lukarawa. Africa accounts for 65% of global HIV burden. Africa accounts for 65% of global HIV burden. That's quite a lot. That's huge. Atiku, Damagum, Wike absent as PDP leaders seek solutions to party's crisis. Atiku, Damagum, Wike absent as PDP leaders seek solutions to party's crisis. Tinubu applauds media for 25 years of democracy, nation building. Tinubu applauds media for 25 years of democracy, nation building. That story has these details on page 26 of the Guardian newspaper today. Let's take a look at the very last of the papers, and that will happen to be the Nation newspaper. Above the name masts, top left corner with a picture of the First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu. Renewed Hope initiative funded by private donors, says First Lady. Renewed Hope initiative funded by private donors, says First Lady. Okay, what more do we have? Protects journalists, says NUJ Omotosho Williams at the Nation Foundation. Protects journalists, say NUJ Omotosho Williams at the Nation Foundation. FG or federal government to begin free cesarean section for women. Federal government to begin free cesarean section for women. Lagos woos investors for 4,000 megawatts power plants. And then we have the star story for you. DHQ launches bid to take out new terrorist group, Lukarawas. Hopefully we do that early enough. All right. The writer says, Sahelian jihadists, ISIS-linked Islamists settled in Sokoto, Kebbi. How they crossed into North. Those are all details you would like to read up when you pick up a copy of the Nation newspaper today. All right, let's see what we have more in terms of headlines from the Nation newspapers. CBN's economic stability plan on course, says Cardoso. Soludo, Nigeria undergoing reset with subsidy removal. Nigeria undergoing reset with subsidy removal. That's according to the former CBN governor, who is now the governor of Anambra State. Illiterates holding us hostage, says Kuka. Illiterates holding us hostage. That's in an apparent reference to those who influence and run the country right now. Okay. Then one headline here, bottom left of the front page of the Nation newspaper today. Federal government, media free to access single-digit loan. Again, says federal government, media free to access single-digit loan. Osho declares 3-day mourning as small tribute rain for General Lagbaja. Osho declares 3-day mourning as small tribute rain for General Lagbaja. You'll find those details on page 4 of the Nation newspaper this morning. Just a quick reminder that these headlines are read here On Global Television, the Global TV shares no opinions, sentiments, biases, or any position on whatever the headlines or the stories in full are about. We just bring you the headlines just so you have an idea what the direction of news is every day, 7 days a week. We're taking a quick break now. When we return, it will be time for the Global AM News. Do stay with us, everyone. Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bonds, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television.
Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to AM News on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Anthony Momodu. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and free to air on Nikonsat. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, has reaffirmed President Bola Tinubu's administration's commitment to the socio-economic growth of the country. Akume stated this during the distribution of startup kits to 689 graduates of the National Hydroelectric Power Producing Areas Development Commission Youth Transformation Program in Benue State. Akume, who was represented by his Chief of Staff, Simon Tiungu, highlighted various government initiatives, including a youth vocational training program, which he described as life-changing. He explained that the program had its grand launch in Minna, Niger State, with the distribution of 365 startup kits to graduates, followed by a similar distribution in Jos, Plateau State. The Defense Headquarters has confirmed the emergence of a new terrorist group known as Lukarawas in the northwestern part of the country. The Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, disclosed this while briefing newsmen on military operations in Abuja. He stated that the new terror group originated in the Republic of Niger after the recent coup, which disrupted military cooperation between Nigeria and Niger, explaining that the terrorists began infiltrating northern states of Sokoto and Kebbi from the Niger Republic and Mali. The Minister of Defense Abubakar Baduru and his counterpart Bello Matawali have condoled with President Bola Tinubu over the demise of Chief of Army Staff Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja, who passed away on Tuesday night. Samuel Odi has the details.
The Minister of Defense, Abubakar Badaru, described the death of Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Lagbaja, as tragic and a great loss to the nation. He described the late Chief of Army Staff as a gallant officer and a warrior who served in so many theaters and performed credibly at service. Badaru prayed for the repose of Lieutenant General Lagbaja's soul.
He was a gallant officer, very, very hardworking. He was indeed a warrior. He has served in so many theaters and have done commendably well. It's a very sad loss for the country. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to receive him.
Also, the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawali, lauded the courage service to the nation. He described Lieutenant General Lagbaja as a great loss and condoled with his family and the nation.
He's a gallant officer and it's a great loss to this nation, and all we can say is to God to bless the family, and we assure Nigerians that we'll continue praying for the demise of Lagbaja, and we sending our condolences to the family of the deceased and Mr. President, because it's a great loss to this nation.
The acting Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, expressed regret following the death of Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Lagbaja.
The entire Nigerian army is actually in a very sorrowful mood, having lost our leader, Lieutenant General T.A. Lagbaja. This was someone that gave his all to Nigeria. He was a selfless leader. Then I want to enjoin Nigerians. For someone that have given all to his all to Nigeria, we need to celebrate him. So in that, I think I want Nigerians to actually celebrate him for the good job he did while alive.
President Bola Tinubu had on Wednesday rescheduled the Federal Executive Council meeting to a yet-to-be-announced date to mourn the late Chief of Army Staff. Initially scheduled for today, the council meeting was postponed in honor of Lieutenant General Lagbaja, the Chief of Army Staff who passed away on Tuesday night. After announcing the postponement at the council chamber, Vice President Kashim Shettima led other council members in observing a 1-minute silence in honor of the late Army Chief. Samuel Odi reporting for Global Television News.
At least 22 miners are presumed dead following the collapse of a mining pit at an illegal mining site located within a national game reserve spanning Gashaka local government area in Taraba State and Tungo local government area in Adamawa State. Adamu Jamtare, a miner from the Gashaka, explains that many of the deceased were from the Jamatari town in Gashaka local government area. Chairman of Tungo local government area, Engineer Suleiman Tungo, confirmed that 5 miners had been found dead, though he was uncertain of the exact number still buried. He said the incident involving miners from various parts of Nigeria, including Zamfara and Adamawa, occurred almost a month ago. The presidency has sought to allay concerns regarding the safety of compressed natural gas-powered vehicles, recently introduced in Nigeria as an alternative petrol-powered cars. The special advisor to President Bola Tinubu on Information and Strategy, Bayo Nanuga, dismissed these fears in a post on X while responding to reports on Malaysia's plan to phase out CNG-powered vehicles by 2025. It was earlier reported that Malaysian government announced plans to phase out CNG vehicles and end the sale of natural gas vehicles by July 2025. The Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetukun, on Thursday ordered officers and men of the Nigerian Police Force to wear black bands for a 7-day mourning period in honor of the late Chief of Army Staff, Tarid Lagbaja. This directive, issued through the Force Public Relations Officer Muyiwa Adejobi, aims to pay tribute to Lagbaja's gallantry, dedication, and passion in fighting violent crimes and insurgency in Nigeria. Lagbaja, appointed by President Bola Tinubu on June 19, 2023, passed away on Tuesday at the age of 56 after a prolonged illness. His contributions to the country's security and well-being have been recognized nationally, with President Tinubu directing that Nigeria's national flags be flown at half-mast for 7 days across the country to mourn his passing. The Cross River State chapter of the Magistrates Association of Nigeria has threatened to down tools should the state governor, Senator Basi Otu, fail to clear the backlog of salary arrears owed its members since 2015. The magistrates also gave the governor 7 days ultimatum to heed their demand, as failure to meet their demands will lead to the commencement of an industrial action which will disrupt court operations in the state. The association's chairman in Cross River State, Godwin Ona, gave the warning during the association's General Congress in Calabar. He said the warning became necessary following the level of insensitivity exhibited by the state government regarding the association's welfare. He urged the state governor to fulfill all the state's obligations for the smooth functioning of the justice system. The Federal Ministry of Health has launched an initiative that provides free cesarean sessions for poor and vulnerable women across the country. The initiative, tagged, was launched during the joint annual health review organized by the ministry in Abuja. The coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Momad Ali Pate, described the initiative as an ambitious commitment to reducing maternal and newborn mortality across the country. The minister said the maternal mortality remains unacceptably high, with 172 local governments contributing to over 50% of maternal death. Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State has called on President Bola Tinubu to reconsider the recently proposed tax reform bills, calling for it to be reviewed with a focus on unity rather than division. Mohammed, while speaking to BBC Hausa Service, also appealed to the president to hold the bill's progress and conduct wide consultations to ensure the welfare and balance before being passed into law. This is coming as the proposals, particularly the shift of derivative-based model for distributing value-added tax (VAT) sparked strong objections from northern governors and traditional leaders as they argue that the model will disproportionately disadvantage less industrialized regions, especially the northern states. Governor Muhammad, however, warned that the proposed tax reforms would worsen the economic hardship already faced by many northern states. Kano State Governor Abba Yusuf has urged the Nigerian Medical Association to suspend its strike action. The Kano State Governor gave the warning, saying that it could endanger the lives of over 20 million Kano residents who depend on medical services. While expressing his disappointment over the association's decision to strike, he urged the association to allow due process to take its course. The association had issued a 48-hour ultimatum to the state government to dismiss the commissioner, threatening to go on strike if the demand was not met. And still in the news, ahead of the November 16 Ondo governorship election, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has confirmed that sensitive election materials will arrive in Akure by November 12. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu, while addressing stakeholders at the pre-election meeting held in Akure, made the announcement, stressing that the electoral body is committed to a well-organized and credible election process. He said that all sensitive materials, including ballots and result sheets, would be delivered to the Central Bank of Nigeria Akure branch by early next week. Rumors that former Imo Governor Senator Rochas Okorocha is dead has been dismissed by his aide. Ebere Ezewoji said Okorocha is alive and well, putting the false social media claims to rest. According to Ezewoji, Okorocha was attending to his normal duties at his Unity House Gariki Abuja office when the fake news started circulating. He clarified that the former governor had just returned from Owerri, Imo State, where he attended the funeral ceremony of his elder statesman Emmanuel Iwanyanwu and hosted Deputy Speaker Benjamin Kalu and other reps members. A major redeployment of top generals in the Nigerian Army is imminent, following the death of Chief of Army Staff Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja. Reports gathered say President Bola Tinubu would soon pronounce the newly promoted Lieutenant General Oluyide as the substantive Chief of Army Staff. This, it was learned, would be subjected to the confirmation of the Senate, after which there might be a reshuffling in the Army. 3 minors detained in Borno State for allegedly participating in the #EndBadGovernance protest remain in custody, despite a recent directive from President Bola Tinubu ordering their immediate release. President Tinubu's directive, issued 3 days ago, led to the release of minors held in Abuja. But the Borno Minors Defense Council, Barrister Yakubu Alhaji Ahmad Adamu, said they are still held in a juvenile facility in Maiduguri following a court order. The minors were initially arraigned before Justice Aisha Muhammad Ali at the State High Court 10 in Maiduguri, where they pleaded not guilty, and the judge subsequently ordered their remand in a juvenile facility and adjourned the case till November 18, 2024. You're watching AM News on Global Television, coming to you live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. When AM News returns, Palestine envoy to Nigeria charges Trump to end Gaza war. Details of these, as well as business and foreign stories, coming right after this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back from the break. In business, the Oyo State government says it has committed over 15 billion naira for the rehabilitation and asphaltic improvement of the Bodija, Molete and Agodi roads in Ibadan. The State Commissioner for Public Works and Transport, Professor Daud Sangodoyi, made the disclosure after the 12th State Executive Council meeting held in Ibadan. He shared details about the newly approved road projects, emphasizing the government's focus on improving road networks in both residential neighborhoods and busy areas. Professor Sangodoyi further explained that the decision to rehabilitate the roads aligns with Governor Sheyi Makinde's commitment to improve infrastructure, especially following the January 17 explosion incident in the area. In order to improve access to reliable HIV test kits and support Nigeria's fight against the spread of HIV/AIDS, the federal government has signed a memorandum of understanding with Chinese-based WONDFO Biotech Limited to begin local production of HIV diagnostic kits in Nigeria. Director General of the National Agency for the Control of AIDS, Dr. Temitope Ilori, made the announcement in Abuja as WONDFO donated 4,000 HIV test kits in preparation for World AIDS Day. This partnership, according to her, is set to also encourage local manufacturing of HIV diagnostic reagents while strengthening healthcare self-sufficiency. And going to the foreign scene, United States Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris has conceded defeat following a decisive victory for the Republican candidate Donald Trump in the 2024 presidential election. According to a senior aide, Harris called Trump to congratulate him and discuss the importance of a peaceful transfer of power and being a president for everyone in the country. In her phone call, Harris reportedly expressed her commitment to unity, urging the country to come together. She is scheduled to deliver remarks later in Washington, D.C., marking her first public statement since her projected last. Equatorial Guinea's President Obiang Nguema Mbasogo has reportedly appointed Zenon Obiang Avomo as the new Director General of the National Agency for Financial Investigation. He replaced Baltasar Engonga following a shocking sex scandal involving public officials. This was disclosed in a news report by a media outlet based in Equatorial Guinea, Ohara EG. The president reportedly fired Engonga for irregularities committed in the exercise of his functions, as well as inappropriate family and social conduct for the performance of public functions. Palestinian envoy to Nigeria, Abdullah Abu Shawesh, has expressed deep concerns about the likely actions or stand of the newly elected 47th President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. The ambassador, who made this known at a press briefing in Abuja, noted that the previous experience under Trump made it difficult to tell if he will keep to his campaign promises of ending wars across the world. Global Television correspondent tells us more. The Palestinian envoy to Nigeria, Abdullah Abu Shawesh, therefore called on the International Committee to compel Donald Trump to keep to his campaign promises of ending the carnage in the Middle East despite his first-time bias in favor of Israel.
If this is the case, we have a very bad experience with the President-elected Trump. When he was in his office 4 years ago, he took approximately 17 measures. All of these measures is against the Palestinian people. To name some of it, just he recognized Jerusalem as the eternal capital of Israel, which is against the international law. We all know that Jerusalem or East Jerusalem is considered as occupied occupied territory, Palestinian occupied territory.
The envoy says in just 1 year, the U.S. has spent at least $22.76 billion on military aid to Israel, leading to the 90% of the Gaza population suffering food insecurity, displacement, lack of cash, water, and medicine.
We pledge that no one will be left behind. 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. We, the Palestinians, were left behind. 398 days of non-stop bleeding at the hands of the United States of America, Israel, different slaughtering machine.
Shawesh pleaded with the newly elected President of the United States, Donald Trump, to uphold the tenets of international law to ensure true global peace and the freedom of the Palestinian people.
Just to abide by the international law. I will not add more than that. For the elected President Trump, just to abide by the international law.
It is hoped that the promise by the 47th President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, to end the killing of over 43,392 Palestinians with 103,337 injured amidst 85,000 tons of bombs dropped in Gaza by the Israeli Defense Forces will come to pass for the good of humanity. Anthony Momodu, reporting for Global Television. European auto giant Stellantis has said it would lay off 1,100 workers at its Jeep factory in Toledo, Ohio. This is an effort to regain its competitive edge as it struggles with falling sales. Stellantis, a 14-brand group that includes Peugeot, Fiat, and Chrysler, said in a statement that it would move from a two-shift to a one-shift operation at the Toledo South Assembly Plant in 2025. It says another 400 employees would be transferred to a third-party service provider, noting that they are difficult but necessary actions to take in order to enable the company to regain its competitive edge and eventually return production to prior levels. And running to the world of sports, Saudi Pro League club Al Hilal are preparing to part ways with Brazilian superstar Neymar, with Liverpool's Mohamed Salah and Al Nassr's Cristiano Ronaldo reportedly among their target as potential replacements. Neymar, who joined Al Hilal for 90 million euros from Paris Saint-Germain 18 months ago, has struggled with injuries, including a recent ACL setback, which has kept him sidelined for much of his time at the club. According to report, Al Hilal's frustration with Neymar's injury problems which has led them to consider terminating his contract as early as January. And moving to Old Trafford, Manchester United and Chelsea are reportedly leading the race to sign Sporting Lisbon striker Victor Gyökeres, with the Swedish forward enjoying a remarkable run of form. According to reports, United and Chelsea appear to be front-runners in the chase for Gyökeres, with the Telegraph suggesting that his transfer fee could drop to a bargain of £63 million next summer. Gyökeres has scored 9 goals in the last 3 appearances and boasts of a total of 23 goals in 17 games across all competitions this season, attracting the attention of top clubs across Europe. And that's how we call it a wrap on AM News. I am Anthony Momodu. Thank you for watching.
Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bonds, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides, cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television.
Time to get our first discussion on the road for you, everyone. We turn now to the conversation around the compressed natural gas initiative that appears to be pivotal to the overall strategy of government to drive developments and bring some kind of ease to motoring and driving developments from an economic standpoint in Nigeria right now. However, that in itself has hit a few bumps already. Yesterday, concerns were rife about whether or not we should push further with this otherwise laudable CNG initiative. And this is coming from what we now know as a ban by the Malaysian authorities on CNG-powered vehicles. On account of these developments, Nigerians, whether regular everyday citizens or even those who are referred to as critical stakeholders, are now saying that we probably need to step on our brakes for a second and take another look at whether or not we need to move any forward with this program. Well, we're joined by an expert this morning who will help us provide very critical insights and perspectives on what exactly we're dealing with and what best methods for addressing these issues should be. Joining us live via Zoom from Lagos State is energy expert, Dr. Wisdom Patrick Enag. Thank you so very much for breaking through your schedule this Friday morning to join us here on the program.
Thank you very much and good morning. Hello.
All right, so I'm going to ask you this first. What exactly are we dealing with? Let's start from the Malaysian standpoint. What do we need to understand very clearly about what has happened in Malaysia and how that has become a source of concern for us back in Nigeria?
All right, thank you very much. I think one thing we need to know about the issue about CNG generally is that the safety aspects of CNG is down to the utilization and the nature it is utilized. What I mean by that is, compared to PMS, CNG is a lot less forgiving when things go wrong, but the tendency for things to go wrong when things are done properly is quite less. That's the way I put it. The reason I say so is this. Think about what the whole concept of CNG and with regards to how it relates to when things go wrong and how things go wrong. Number one, when we have, let's say, for example, you have a CNG, what are the rules? You must put a CNG, cylinder in a place where there's really no extreme heat, because that's not good for it. And that's the same reason why a CNG cannot travel a long distance, very long distance, cross country compared to an LNG, which is why if you want to ship long distances, you'd have to use an LNG. The CNG would typically, the entropy within the system would have been higher, and then there could be an outburst in the system. Now, but when it comes to the safety perspectives, the CNG actually presents a much safer fuel. There's a narrow range of flammability compared to PMS, and also the auto-ignition temperature, the temperature at which CNG would ignite itself is much higher than petrol or diesel. But then why do accidents still happen if that is true? It happens because people don't use it properly. One of the biggest risks of CNG is explosion. And one of the biggest factors that contribute to explosion is where you use substandard cylinders or substandard kits. That's one of the biggest problems. So as long as people use it properly, within the right ambience conditions, for example, if you're driving in the boot of your car, make sure there's no heat source there. And make sure every now and then you allow time for, when you finish your journey and you're going to be in direct sun, make sure you open it up so that there's kind of some airflow around it and it cools down, doesn't begin to have a very high entropy and the higher chances of explosion.
Have a bit of controversy around this right now. Of course, you look at what had happened in Benin City, Edo State, just a few weeks ago, the explosion. Of course, you have tried to explain that we need to understand the dynamics around it, how to use it, how to deploy it, and how that it is essentially different because CNG-powered vehicles or machines can travel long distances like cross-country trips and what have you. But for Nigerians who are watching this morning, they probably are very eager to want to understand what is largely the reason Malaysia is announcing this ban so that we can use that as a basis to set the record straight for people back home in Nigeria.
I think one of the biggest reasons has been how to standardize it in such a way that the safety aspects and the consequences of the risk occurrence is quite minimized. Because when you're looking at risk management, you're looking at reducing the probability of occurrence or the consequences of occurrence, right? And what they've done is, yes, there are inherent risks associated with the misuse. I'll give you a very good analogy. It's like saying you're going on an aircraft and someone says to you, an aircraft is the safest form of transport because it has the least accident by statistics. And then you turn around and say, well, but if there is any form of an accident with an aircraft, then the chances of survival is zero. What do we have there? We have low probability of occurrence, high consequence of occurrence. Now, that's the same thing that the Malaysian government are looking at. There's a high consequence when things happen, but it doesn't really happen. And what is it down to? It's down to standardization. It's down to the fact that how do you ensure that you can take ownership of the technology? The biggest problem is insofar as we have to inherit this technology from, foreign partners, and there is no way to recertify. I'll give you context. When last did any of us pick our LPG cylinders, go and check that the LPG cylinders are healthy and they still have enough wall thickness for the maximum allowable working pressure that the cylinder should see? That's the first thing we need to think about. So it's more about our operations and maintenance culture. CNG really needs a very thorough operations and maintenance culture. Otherwise, things are going to go wrong. So if we don't do that, and the next question someone is going to ask is, where can I get my cylinder recertified? So there's a lot of questions. And where a country doesn't have that level of infrastructure to allow the average person to keep to the safety tenets of using a particular technology, then the chances are they might as well put a hold to it while trying to figure out all those imperatives, including the infrastructure required for the safe operation of that technology.
Dr. Wisdom, at a point, I mean, in history where the world is discussing EVs, I mean, electronic vehicles and other smart alternatives to, fossil to PMS as we know it, for example. And then Nigeria is talking about CNG. First of all, there's the curiosity to know what the popularity or otherwise of CNG is across the world, and that's number one. Number two is to ask whether Nigeria is just simply lagging or we are dealing with some sort of shared necessity situation right now by turning to CNG as an alternative to petrol.
All right, I think I like very clever question you've asked there, and I'm going to answer the question. So CNG hasn't done quite well compared to the rest. So I'll tell you, in the US, for example, if you have about about 1,200 CNG outlets for refueling stations, compared to the charging ports, you have more than 100,000 of electricity EV charging ports for electric vehicles. So it shows overwhelmingly that the trend is skewed towards the electric vehicle. And you're right. But you see, when we talk about energy transition, you hear the concept of just transition. The just transition is talking about, okay, how can we leverage what we have to get what we want? Yes, the wider world has moved away from anything fossil fuel as a transition fuel, and they're now talking about EVs. And even when they're talking fossil fuels, they're talking about things like the gray and the blue hydrogen technology. But Nigeria has decided to say, okay, we're going to build our plants around the CNG. But a number of things we need to think about. Yes, we try to say, yes, we're doing a just transition. We're using what we have to get what we want. But then there's going to be the issue of how acceptable is it? Because you have to understand that the quadrilemma of energy is availability, accessibility, affordability, and acceptability. And the acceptability component affects how you get funding. You're more likely to get funding for renewable energy project from one of the global funders and even some of these charity donation organizations than you are to get for CNG. I do agree. It's a challenge that we're facing. So it's an uphill battle. And this is why you hear some of the narratives that the petroleum sector stakeholders are talking about, like the African Energy Bank to help fund African energy projects, because you couldn't just get funds for those projects, especially where we're still struggling with the domestic utilization of gas. Remember, most of our gas terminals anyways, they actually built for exports. The gas pipelines that are supposed to crisscross things like the AKK are still not completed and operational. So we still don't have enough gas that we are, kind of consuming internally. So it's still a concern. The concern is how fast is the world moving away from the CNG technology? Are we playing catch up? Will we even have the support needed to reel out our own, stations? Then the second thing is, what are the lessons learned? Why did the world unanimously move away from the CNG technology? I mean, in the US, we're having about 1,200 stations versus 100,000 of stations for EVs. Why did they do that shift? Is there a lessons learned for them to learn? Now, the other thing is, how is India successful? Because India is quite successful. If you go to India, even if you take what we call the scooter, what we call keke here in Nigeria, you'll probably see that it will write there, I am CNG powered. Most of their vehicles, once you have a CNG, it must write, I'm CNG powered. Now, India did that through a number of things. They did that through command and control. So at the point, the Indian Supreme Court laid out a court order saying that minimum amount of vehicles from the government, from private people, should be converted to CNG. There were some tax credits that were given to assist that. India leveraged more on the subnationals to drive the process. So it wasn't just a presidential initiative for CNG that drove the entire process from top to bottom. It was getting the governors at the various districts available, kind of into the whole idea, and then they pushed it up from there. So apart from tax credit, they also got their manufacturers to give them a quota and give them some tax support benefits. Now, the third thing that I think we can do better is to get a kind of domestic energy fund. And what do I mean by that? Ghana is doing that. If you earn a certain level of salary and you want to opt for the alternative technology, remember those alternative technologies have a very high-end implementation cost at the beginning. Now, what we can do is to have one of our banks or some of our banks fund it and say, you can actually approach the bank for a single-digit credit. They will give you a loan, repayable in 4 years, and then they will fund that project for you. What I mean, if you want to convert your vehicle, we are hearing the conversion cost now is about $1 million, and you want to convert it, you want to do it properly. The bank will say, okay, who is going to do it for you? It must be one of the recognized converters that will give you the right kits, especially the ones that are not adulterated kits. And then you go there, you fill your form, get it approved, they implement this in your car, and they set up a system to debit as little as $30,000 to $40,000 per month from your account. That is what Ghana is doing. They're doing something that is from the government through the banks to consumers. Because I think the biggest lessons I've learned in CNG is for you to sustain it, you need to move away from the command kind of approach where you tell people exactly this is the emissions limit you need to meet, let them go adopt the right technology or for alternative fuels to meet it, or you tell companies this is what you need to do to sustain it and grow the market. You need to now go down to the consumers, and funding is a problem, and that's something we must solve. So all of this, I'm talking about amalgamating, integrating, and bringing together all the lessons learned from other people that have done it successfully, and also people that had concerns and abandoned the technology.
All right. I mean, you've made quite salient points there, Dr. Wisdom. But then we hear from people who often are referred to as critical stakeholders in this regard, say that there are a couple of components that must be fundamentally addressed. Otherwise, we won't get it right even in 2 lifetimes. For instance, let's say we need to be very clear as to standards, protocols, what have you. I mean, from a technical standpoint, that much you have also alluded to from a professional perspective. But then let's talk about model. You've mentioned Ghana. You've also cited India in your narrative just a while ago. Would you say, for instance, given the peculiarity of the circumstances we're dealing with regarding this conversation we're having this morning, that the CNG initiative in Nigeria got off on the right footing?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I would like to put it. So I think about it, jump or push. I think we were pushed. We did not jump well on our own, because jumping on our own would mean we would have done some real sort of groundwork towards that takeoff.
Right.
Again, I want to separate two fundamental things that I think we need to be aware of. There is a need for gas and there is a market for gas. And people sort of confuse both. Right now, there's a need for gas. Why is there the need for gas? Because domestic energy prices, led by PMS, for which we're more than 60% reliant on, has gone up. And so people are looking for alternatives. But how do we convert that need to a structured market? That is where we need market activities, we need standardization, we need funding support. But when those imperatives are not there, I think we are misinterpreting the need to mean a market. And one thing investors have learned, even in other clients, is that if you cannot convert the need to a market with all the imperatives I've talked about, funding, standardization, legal backing, the government's body language, to say we're going to lead the talk. We're not just going to talk the talk. We're going to walk the talk with the people at the front. Then investors cannot come in. So this is the biggest problem that we're having. It's coming a bit too late, and we are not showing that we even have the second mover's advantage that we ought to be having when we're having this sort of conversation, because we're playing catch-up.
Two words I want to leverage on real quick, Dr. Wisdom, from this point you just established. First is, you said market, because you said there's market for gas, there is need for gas, and then you also used the term investors. Now, speaking of which, just yesterday we were told that the government has attracted no less than $200 million by way of investments in CNG-specific initiatives. Are we supposed to be excited or yearn for more?
No, I think the devil is in the detail, and I'm going to break it down. First and foremost, when you hear 200 million, this is what investors do. They pledge 200 million, but they actually do not dole out 200 million in one go. There are contractual clauses that say we're going to phase this 200 million. We'll probably give you the first 60 million, and then when you meet certain criteria, we'll give you the rest of them contingent on you meeting this criteria. We have seen that time and time again. And that's why when you see a project that was well intended and funded, now the investors pull out their funds and say they're no more interested, right? So that's not something to get us excited, because essentially they are breakout contractual clauses that says if you cannot meet our requirement, or if we cannot see potential later on into the market, we will pull out. So it's still something for us to feel that this is the beginning. Again, when you look at that level of funding versus the billions of dollars that are going into other sectors of the economy, in other clients, and even within the CNG client in other economies, you need to know that and versus their population, you now realize that we haven't even started. I mean, there's still a lot to do. So it's not time for anyone to get comfortable. And obviously, it would allude to a misrepresentation of the fact if you feel that the 200 million is already there in the account. No, it's not. It's usually phased, and definitely that's just too small. I mean, what can that do compared to the expense of pipelines that we do need to be able to run our CNG initiative? I'll give you just context, right? India really doesn't have oil, but they have 73,000 kilometers of gas pipelines. We have oil and gas, but we only have about 6,000 to 7,000 kilometers of gas pipeline. So you can understand that, but we're actually the eighth largest reserve in the world. India doesn't even have, they're not in the first 100, if you want to look at it that way. So there's something about driving a national gas initiative and the state of your facility. India has driven that even without having any gas, and they have driven all of that because they understand that to consume energy properly, you need the infrastructure, you need the funding, you need the government support, and you need standardization, and you need to educate people. There is no way people are going to buy a technology if they are not well aware. So where is the awareness campaign to tell people this case has happened in Indonesia, this fear had happened in Edo State, this is what the mitigations are to ensure that it doesn't occur as we begin to ramp up our adoption of CNG as a technology.
Now, staying with the element of investment, just recently, about a week ago, we're told that Dangote had invested, or would invest, at least indicated interest to invest, something in the neighborhood of $200 million US. For some people who are looking from the sidelines, they probably are of the sentiments that for a man who has done something around $20 billion in a refinery, the first of its kind on the soil of Africa, it's probably a signal that there's much more to come, that there is hope, potential, to use a word, with regards to CNG initiative. Can we then deduce from that this is some sort of charity beginning from home?
I mean, there's a lot of hope when it comes to one of our own. By that I mean a Nigerian believing in the investment opportunity. But then, I think the government needs to do a lot to make it attractive, because we've also seen the Dangote say, well, I wanted to invest in steel, but I'm not going to invest anymore. There's a lot of factors that are fighting that. So, yes, as I said, there is a need, but the Dangote is trying to bring funding to put the imperatives in place to establish a sustainable market. There's a need. There's clearly a need. But how sustainable is that market eventually would depend on how it's designed. So, yes, it's something to have a very good optimism about. But versus our energy needs is quite small, and we can only harp on the need for scalability, even as we begin to ramp up. As I said, a lot of factors are against us. Even when you're talking about CNG technology, you're talking about the fact that we need to domesticate research and innovation, because the way energy is utilized in the UK is different from the US and is different from Nigeria. And so you still need domestication of that innovation. And we don't have that. We don't even have a framework that is legally enshrined to drive CNG. We're just having policy directions. So those are things that we need to sit down and say, okay, people are showing interest. We obviously have a need, but how do we establish a sustainable market? How do we ensure, go and read the records. A lot of initiatives that has lasted in different countries, including the NLNG projects that that contributes a lot to our economy today, has been enshrined into some of our legal frameworks. That's the way to do it. So if you're thinking you're doing CNG, you need to come up first with the command and control and enshrine it. If not, another government will come in and not be able to be willing to continue the initiative. So these are the things we need to learn our lessons, and I think we need to do a lessons learned workshop. We had the Nigerian Gas Master Plan in 2008. What made it failed? Why are we not happy on the lessons learned? So this is not just learning from Ghana or India or the UK or the US. We've had our own kickstart. It went right down, and at that point we started all over again, and now came up with the Nigerian gas policy. And then of 2017, and we've now come up with the decade of year of gas initiative in 2020, and now the decade of gas initiative that should terminate in 2030. What are the lessons learned? What can we cross-pollinate? What are the ideas we can bring from the Nigerian Gas Master Plan, which was very well thought of at the time? But then, so we have a difference between policy intent, policy implementation, and policy outcomes. All the programs were well thought of, but how were they implemented? Very horribly. And what was the outcome? Very, very terrible outcomes.
Two more issues to be addressed quickly, Dr. Wisdom, before we let you off this morning. Let's talk about the issue of gas for a minute, because you have again and again made a passing reference to it. Nigeria, we are told, is substantially blessed with gas. In fact, for the first time, we're having a minister for petroleum resources with a focus specifically on gas. But what we're doing with gas at this point, I mean, 25 years into the return to democracy, is a different kettle of fish altogether. How do we scale gas? I mean, whatever blessing, so to speak, that comes with it. Because we know when we had former Lagos State Governor Raji Babatunde Fashola as Minister for Power in this country, time and again, there were complaints about how that we didn't have enough gas. That's been the reason we're having epileptic power supply across the country. How do we scale our outputs in specific ways around the gas potential that we have?
Okay, thank you very much. I think the regional hub system for gas is going to be one potential solution that I think we can deploy. And, all of those thoughts are there because we've had this conversation about gas industrial parks, and those conversations have always been there. It's just the willpower to implement. But I think something may be coming up to be a game changer if we can grab the opportunity. Again, the funding continues to frustrate us. First and foremost is the Nigerian government came up with what we call the Nigerian Gas Commercialization Program. Flare gas commercialization program. And that program was to take out flare gas, and the flare gas ranges from dry gas to very wet gas. That means you could have dry gas that is very much ready for CNG with little or no changes or processing, and you could also have wet gas where you could strip and also create LPG and the rest of the other components that you need, and the more heavier and liquid components. Now, that means there's a lot of monetization options around the various streams of gas composition. Now, what that means is that the government said, come up with your technology and tell us what you want to do. So you know the flare gas volume, you know the quality of gas, you have your technology, tell us the project you're going to do, how does it benefit the Nigerian government? And the whole idea was to make sure that they can solve the problem of stranded gas. So at the various centers in the Niger Delta, there are gas deposits around a couple of places. And those gas deposits may not be commercially viable enough for maybe the mother company that is actually producing the gas. So they may choose to flare it. But a smaller company could come and uptake that gas and do a little project with it. And sometimes it is that way because we don't have enough pipelines to commingle those gas into commercial quantities. So the government said, let's bring people to solve that problem. Why am I bringing that to bear? Is this: if we can have people successfully implement projects across those various flare sites, it means that we'll have gas pipeline quality gas at those various centers for implementation of projects. So you could have things like one flare site could say we want to use gas for power, we want to do a gas for power initiative, And that means whichever gas is available there can create a regional power. Because ultimately, even when we're talking about the regional collapsing grid, the central grid, it is creating regional grids. That's the answer. Because once you have a single point of failure and there's an attack on that single point of failure, it comes down ultimately. So if we can develop our regional gas hubs, leveraging on the Nigerian gas flare commercialization program, then we could have gas for power. Thankfully, we have increased our tariffs so they're now cost reflective for Ban A, for example. So yes, we could have gas for power, and then we could then look at putting the critical infrastructure pipeline all the way perhaps to the north where there's no gas and supplying them. But I think the south-south, for starters, can develop their regional hubs and create electricity for themselves. At least that would take us off the central, as many people as you can take off the central grid. That's better. And that is further engendered by the fact that the federal government has approved the, we now have the Electricity Act of 2023, which means that states can develop their own electricity. So I think it's all coming together to promote the use of regional electricity generation rather than the central grid.
Okay, let's tie things up real quick, Doc. We'll begin again from where we started from. Just recently, the president said to Nigerians, look, you have two options in front of you now. You either buy PMS for whatever amount it sells out there, or you turn to the alternative, which is CNG, which many people say it's 4-5 times cheaper than PMS. That seems to make economic sense on some level. Now, how does that resonate with you? That's the first question. The second question is, now that there's going to be some competitiveness, in a manner of speaking, between the prices of PMS and that of CNG, what are the odds that industry mischief makers and share saboteurs will not frustrate the efforts to, as it were, gain mileage with CNG in such a way that advantage is given to those who are in the core petrol business?
Yeah, I mean, the politics, energy politics is much anticipated. I mean, it happens even in the U.S., a developed economy like the U.S. So we do expect that to happen, but we can only hope that because necessity is driving the need, this adoption, that we would leave sentiments behind and know that the choice before us is either we continue to go for PMS as overarchingly, and that would cost us in our economy and our pockets compared to the CNG. Now, let me even just put out one situation here for everyone to understand. We talk about the crude for Naira deal that is midwifing the PMS that we have today. It's not entirely free. There is an opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is the fact that already we have a lot of our crude volumes encumbered on crude-backed loans, and that means that we do not have as much as we would love to even sell to the international buyers and get money for our FX needs. Not only that, we are also cutting part of that, a significant part of that, and if not almost all, and giving it away in Naira. So whilst we have energy sufficiency in countries, we risk having a challenge where we do not have enough FX to be able to moderate from the oil and gas sector, to be able to moderate our FX market. And that's why you're having a situation where our currency is sliding all the way, even though we have stopped the subsidy, but it's sliding because the opportunity cost has set in that we are not earning FX, rather we are actually earning Naira, and we are not having enough to increase our buffer, our FX buffer. That's the first thing we need to understand. So the consumption ties down to the opportunity cost, and that opportunity cost is hurting our economy. Now, when it comes to the issue of, the president saying that people should adopt CNG, I think that is an aspiration. And that aspiration should be further backed by several, stewardship of objectives. Yes, you could get to CNG. These are the areas, this is how much we have succeeded in proliferating the adoption of CNG. This is where the centers are, because as basic as, okay, where can I get it even converted, even if I have the money? People do not know. But people can go and buy a rechargeable, maybe they call it generator, but you plug it and then an inverter. That's people call it a rechargeable generator in the local areas, but it's basically an inverter. They plug it, it charges, and then they can use it for your house. People know where to buy it in a shop. But the CNG is not something you just walk into a store and say, yes, I want this kit, I want this. So the government needs to know that the level of adoption will have a direct correlation with the availability of the equipment and the imperatives that will aid this adoption. So it's not just telling people to go and adopt it. It's also matching that with numbers to say, this is the statistics that we're rolling out. Please key in, and that will drop your fuel price. Otherwise, we risk substandard products that will midwife accidents and be counterproductive to the whole intent of the CNG adoption.
Dr. Wisdom Patrick Anang, energy experts, words fail us to say thank you to you this morning for these very valuable insights you've shared with us.
Thank you very much, and do enjoy your morning.
You too. That's why we'll take a break on our first discussion, everyone. When we return, we turn our attention to issues of life and death. Well, that's in a sense. It means we'll be talking about security-related issues and what must be done by way of military leadership going forward.
This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides, cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television.
Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides, cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television.
Global Morning is your ultimate destination for engaging political and economic matters. I am Uyi Agmofwebe.
And don't forget to include social discussions. Tune in every weekdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. I am Queen Agaba.
For insightful breakfast ideas, business summaries, sports highlights, international and local news perspective, I am Anthony Momodu.
Don't miss the in-depth analysis of current and political issues by the Global Morning team and experts. I am Jumai Manson.
Catch Global Morning here on Global Television. Getting on the action. I am Edikan Michael.
We are
the Global Morning team.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business. This is Imo State, southeast of Nigeria. As the wind of transformation blows across the eastern heartland, Imolites bask in the excitement of landmark developmental strides, cutting across health, education, infrastructure, economy, and job creation. Imo State in Focus brings you all the highlights of Governor Hope Uzodinma-led administration's impact on the lives of the good people of Imo State. Imo State in Focus, Sunday at 10:30 p.m. West African time on Global Television.
Now time to turn to issues around security and defense. Just this week, for example, a couple of things have happened regarding security, especially from the Army standpoint. We lost the Chief of Army Staff. That, again, was a devastating experience for not just the Army, the military or the defense community as we know it, but also for Nigerians. Given the very crucial role that the Army plays in society, especially now that we're dealing with all sorts of criminality in our dear country, Nigeria. However, we're seeing the President show leadership by quickly appointing Chief of Army Staff in acting capacity. Well, there are speculations that in the days ahead, maybe as quickly as a few days, the President will announce, he will be confirmed as the substantive Chief of Army Staff. Of course, that will have to be ratified by the Senate. But while we're waiting for all of that to happen, leadership has changed essentially at this point within the ranks of the Army, especially at the top hierarchy of this formidable institution. The question is, what is the implication of this development? Because the fight against insurgency and banditry, for example, is now rife. All right, what we need to know about the man who is now in the saddle as far as the Army is concerned, talking about Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede. In what ways do Nigerians and indeed the Army expect him to provide very critical direction going forward regarding the fight against insurgency? We're joined live via Zoom from Kano State this morning by Dr. Yahuza Ahmed, who is a security consultant. Thank you, Yahuza, for your time with us on the program this morning.
Good morning, Mr. Awi. Good morning, viewers and the entire team.
So we begin by, first of all, not going into all of some details that would probably stretch for too long, but let's focus on the essence of what has happened the last few days. We've lost a dear soldier and the Chief of Army Staff. The President has made sure there's no vacuum by appointing a gentleman in acting capacity. Of course, this is not the first time we would lose a Chief of Army Staff in active service. Talk to us about the implications of what has happened in the last few days.
Well, there are 7 to 9 outline implications in this regard. One, the new Chief of Army Staff that has been in acting capacity is likely to come up with a new blueprint. And then that is one. And secondly, the implication of all the brigade command, all the GOCs, to understand the blueprint and the focus, the determining outline of what the new Chief of Army Staff or the acting Chief of Army Staff will come up with. And 3, in between the period of when the takeoff and the confirmation and other things are happening, the criminals are taking advantage. So sad and unfortunate. I cried yesterday with tears because bandits entered one of the communities in Katsina State, that is precisely Jibia local government headquarters, which is a border local government and a border community between Nigeria and Niger Republic. It took those bandits for more than an hour. We have alerted the relevant authorities much earlier, more than 45 minutes before they start their attack, because they were sighted more than an hour before they come into the town, within less than 2,000 to 3,000 meters, and security were alerted. And up to the time when they went and killed 30 people and went away with many that we are yet to confirm the total number of people that they have carted away. Until later, after almost an hour, then the military, the troops went there, which I call as after action review. It was quite devastating yesterday night for me, and I find it very difficult. So these such attacks will continue. Part of the implications is while the military or the security agencies are now relaxing to reorganize themselves, if at all I can take it that way, that should be a reason. So definitely a lot of people will lose their lives. I received more than 48 reports of attacks at various places between the northwestern part of the country and north central part of the country. It was quite devastating and really alarming. And the number 5th implication is we don't know what will be the outcome of probably the process at the National Assembly, that is by the Senate, the procedure, the legislative procedure of probably confirmation, or rather we are waiting for Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to kind of make a prompt or a quick, I hope, I'm making a clarion call and I'm advocating that there is need for a swift, a quick action to have the Chief of Army Staff confirmed or to be announced. If another person is going to be appointed, we are waiting for the quick response from the presidency so that we can help the presidency with the authority with the relevant information. So it is really sad. And number 6 implication is, yes, of course, we hope, and I am advocating, I know the acting Chief of Army Staff in the last 13 years, I have known him to be a very responsible and humble officer. And I believe that the leadership of the military, that's the service chiefs of the Air Force, Navy, and the Chief of Defense Staff, in person of General Christopher Musa, they are working hard and around the clock in terms of the synergy and coordination mechanism between the sister agencies that they are working together, as well as even the non-formal structures, as well as the community watch guard. That is the ones initiated by Governor Dr. Diko Umar Rada, the governor of Katsina State, and that of Zamfara State. Of course, it was yesterday, it was the efforts of the vigilante and that of the community watch group, that is the Diko Rada's initiative, that were able to even scare away, after a very long exchange of fire between the bandits, who are about 60, because they came in in 21 motorcycle, and there were 3 in number in each of them, only one that there were 4 in number. So when you multiply the total number of 3 times 20 times 19, whatever number it gives you, then plus 4, that will give you the total number. So there is a need for quick and emergency, because their lives. There are so many unreported attacks. These attacks are taking place almost on daily basis and almost on hourly or by hourly basis. I'm getting these reports and I'm sharing with the relevant authorities.
Let me ask you this, Yahuza, so that we'll put it in perspective real quick for our viewers watching this morning, right? We understand there's a new set of terrorists in the country now, that they are predominantly found in Kebbi and Sokoto states. What exactly does this mean? Even though we have been told they essentially come from Libya and Mali and Niger Republic, how does this redefine the insecurity landscape, so to speak?
Well, I'm disputing that information that they came from Libya, wherever. I'm disputing it. Let anybody go back and check the records on AIT, one of your sister media agency. I have discussed about these guys. They are not new. I've discussed about them around 2018 and 2019 and 2021. People should go back to the archive and check my records and check through the media. Let them go back and check the records. They have been there. They are not new. Probably they grow, but they are not new. It's not a new initiative. It's not a new emergence. I have conducted an investigation and a research, and I have shared the information with the relevant authorities, but they didn't take it serious. That was the reason. That is why they were allowed to grow. So if they grow, or they have an alliance from other people from Libya, aftermath of Libya and aftermath of the Mali rebels, and probably in conjunction with ISWAF and others, and probably with Ansaru, because most of their behavioral perspective in terms of their approach in the fight or in the their operations or mode of operandi is more or less have a very close link with that of Ansaru, which has been in Niger, which I have been talking about since the year 2009 and 2010, and nobody listed. These guys are not new, and they are not in Kebbi. Anybody who is saying they are in Kebbi, probably if they started recruiting in Kebbi in the last 24 hours, then I can accept it. They are only in Sokoto. Only that some of the local governments, some of the 5 local governments that they are in, is one of them is neighboring Kebbi State. 3 local governments of Kebbi State, that of Argungum, that of Augi, and that of Arewa. Yes, of course, I know they have been in emergence and they have been there. So if they grow more wing, and then they have alliance and linkages, or they have now been realigning themselves, or they have the aftermath of Libya and aftermath of probably the activities of the Malian rebels. Because even when I discussed it in your sister station, sometimes in the year 2021, I have made mention very clear that if necessary measures is not taken, these guys may have an alliance with an external forces, and probably that will be the bilateral and multilateral perspective, and that will not help matters. And that will not really, is going to really have a serious effect, and it is going to be very dangerous for Nigerian community. And by implication, we are having some insinuative relations to these guys somewhere around areas of between the areas of the border between Nigeria and Chad and Nigeria and Cameroon. Sometimes in May, June, and July, I move around those countries, and I was able to check around that border. And I have highlighted in one of the programs I have had with one of the media agencies though I have not really provided and shared any information with any security agency, because, but I have had it in discussions with some hierarchy of the leadership and administration and management of the security architecture in the country. So they have had the feedback of that investigation and that research and that travel that I have had. So it will be really, it is really devastating how we don't really take intelligence, how we don't really take sometimes information very serious, and until it escalates. Something is really fishy. Something is really disturbing.
Dr. Yahuza, let's talk about something away from this terror cell we're now being told of. When Boko Haram just came on stream, it was basically around the northeastern part of the country, all right? Yobe, Borno, and Adamawa, those are the hotspots. All right, but today we're not talking about the northeast or Boko Haram. We're now looking at Sokoto, we're talking Kebbi, we're talking Zamfara, we're talking Katsina, we're talking Kaduna. These are all states in the northwest of the country. Help us understand the dynamics that have led to this expansion.
Well, the dynamics, I can say that is inability to utilize the relevant intelligence and the relevant probably professionals and the experts who have been working around the clock in order to provide the required support, and their support have not been recognized, or probably that is one. And secondly, there are unscrupulous elements who are working day and night to sabotage the effort of Mr. President. And I know the Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Defense Staff, and the late Chief of Army Staff and the Chief of Air Staff are really doing very well. They are trying their best, but even though their best may not be enough, simply because they are handcuffed, because they don't have adequate manpower to kind of checkmate the challenges that we have. Even though we have so many patriotic, enthusiastic, and professional experts among the security personnel, the military, and the rest of them, who are really determined. But as they are doing whatever they are doing, they are being sabotaged internally. So there is sabotage within. There is negligence within. There is an inability to hold people accountable, those who have been given responsibility. And there is one thing I always say, that it is only in Nigeria that you give somebody responsibility and you hold the authority. So until and unless we are ready to give these people, that is the military and the other security formations, responsibility and authority, because something is really going wrong. I have said time without number that these guys, we know the belt where they are coming, and we know where they are, and we know who they are. And they are not unknown people, and they are not coming from the sky. They are touchable, and they are, their locations are known, and they are individually and in group known. So I don't know. I don't really understand what are really the challenge. Why we are allowing these guys to continue to grow more wings? Because as they continue to grow more wings, they are becoming a serious threat and a serious challenge. So I believe that the dynamicity, the dynamicity of our inability to facilitate the process of manning or managing these issues, and also utilizing the relevant information that is coming from the people who are risking their life at their own cost. Because all the research that I have been undergoing it at my own cost. Nobody can raise a finger and tell me that he or she was paying a penny for me doing so. I'm not saying asking anybody to pay. I'm still doing it, and I'll continue to do it until my last breath. But I'm doing it for the purpose of having a better Nigeria, and for improving the capacity, my own capacity, and my own ability to deliver, and my own ability to respond to questions from the local and international media, as well as the other students who I am mentoring, who are conducting research and other research.
Let's talk about another angle real quick, Dr. Yahuza. I mean, we had seen under former President Muhammadu Buhari how that at the point there was this clarion call for change of guard, as they say in the military. By that, they were saying there was need at that time to change the service chiefs because of the level of insecurity that the country has come to witness. at that point in time. Now, when you look at the realities that we are grappling with, as it has to do with insecurity at this point in our history as a country, would you say we are back to that same cycle where Nigerians are probably thinking there is urgent need to rejig the leadership of the military?
I don't believe in changing the leadership of the military. I have known the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, for quite long, more than 23 years. I have known late Lakbaja for more than 23 years. That is the late Chief of Army Staff. I have known the acting Chief of Army Staff, who is now in an acting capacity in the last 13 years. I have known the Chief of Air Staff very well for quite some time, though not really that too close. And I have known the Chief of Naval Staff in the last 9 to 10 years. And I have known them.
Hopefully we're not losing a stream with Dr. Yahuza Ahmed right there. Yes, you may have known them personally, but how Nigerians assess and rate their performance, their capacity and competence to deliver within their respective mandates is a different topic altogether. Let's take a quick break now, everyone. The rest of the program returns shortly. Thank you so very much for staying with us, everyone. Let's begin to tie things up. I believe we still have Dr. Yahuza Ahmed right there. Let's just switch gears for a minute as we wrap it up right now. Today, we understand that several kidnappings have happened the last couple of days. In one of such instances, we hear some persons were killed. The criminals didn't stop there. They had at least 6 persons from the reports we got 2 days ago, decapitated and their heads taken away. Well, there have been speculations, ritual killing and what have you. Some say, well, they just want to prove a point to the government as to how serious they are. But now with change in leadership within the army and a few other developments we're seeing right now, how much more work do we need to do better in terms of how we fight insecurity?
Just quickly before I respond to that, my knowledge with those officers, service chiefs that I mentioned is not personal. In fact, I think only one of them can mention my name, probably seeing me on the media. But I have known them by cross-checking their capacity, cross-checking their ability, cross-checking their passion, commitment, and result-based approach. Not that I know them personally. I am conducting profiling, personal profiling or professional profiling of the service chiefs and other officers across all the space of the security agencies. Now, going to your question, what we need to do is to reposition the system using the reward and punishment, fighting corruption, fighting corruption, two, ensuring that we have a kind of system of holding people accountable for what they do. And then number four, people like Dr. Getso, Dr. Yahuza Ahmad Getso have been saying that they have known the locations of these guys. Then those locations should be checked. If these guys are not found, then people like Dr. Yahuza Getso should be brought through the book. And then other community leaders who I know they know, and I know the authority know, and I know the authority, the security agencies and the security heads knows that those community leaders knew about their whereabouts of these guys, and they have never moved from where they were. They are still there. So why can't we do something? Even those guys that came and attacked GBI yesterday, they came from Zandam area. They came from all those areas of Faru Malam, Faru Magama, and the rest of all those locations. So why can't we focus strategically and conduct and hold those commanding officers and unit commanders, the divisional police officers and the local security officers and the rest of them, why can't we hold them accountable? The level of armed proliferation as a result of inability of the security team to manage this situation is going out of hand, because arms are really going into the wrong hand on serious basis. You will be very surprised if you will know the type of arms and the number of arms that are getting into the wrong hands of civilians who are working hard to obtain those arms because they want to protect themselves, because they are losing confidence and trust on the fact that they have been sending reports and providing signals, but yet they will be still hot. Nobody is attending to them. So until and unless we are ready to lay foundation on these 5 items that I mentioned, fighting corruption, reorganizing ourselves in terms holding people accountable, and responding to the clarion call, and then reaching out to the locations and hideout if there is anything to call hideout. Because for me, I don't believe there is anything hideout. Going by the capacity of the Nigerian military, I know. Going by the determination, going by the background check, going by the guerrilla research that I have been conducting across African countries and especially Nigerian forests and all those locations that we are seeing. So if we are really sincere and honest, we know where these guys are, we should target them. They are numbered. Why do we have to allow less than 5,000 at maximum number? Why do we have to allow them to continue to destabilize the total number of more than 203 political wards that we have in the northwestern part of the country, and other part of the north central part of the country, northeastern part of the country, and so on and so forth. So let's refocus and reposition ourselves. Let's redouble effort on political commitment. I salute the effort of the Minister of Defense, Malam Badr Abubakar, for moving around the formations, the military formations, re-encouraging them, motivating them, and also reaching out to the traditional and religious institutions and making a clarion call for people, for the public to provide information. Yes, the information is there. Anybody who needs information can invite me. I can testify the fact that I've been presenting. It's not that I'm just presenting it for the sake of saying.
I'm very sure. I'm very sure this discussion will continue at another time, because a lot is still unfolding as it stands right now. And you, Dr. Ahmed Yahuza Getso, has made very extensive reference to some of these issues. But at this point, we would like to say thank you for taking our time to join us on Global Morning today. And here is wishing you a very wonderful weekend ahead.
Thank you for having me.
That's what we're leaving it on these two discussions this morning, everyone. Of course, as always, the opinions or the views of our guests across all of our programs are their respective opinions. Just to also remind you that Global Television shares no interest in these opinions. We appreciate the time you spent with us this morning on the program. Of course, it's the last for the working week. On behalf of the entire production crew here at Global Television's World Headquarters in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, I am Uyi Agmofegbe, saying God bless Nigeria, and of course at top of the hour it will be time to bring you Talk Sports.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
The struggle with ASU
The
strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.